everybody. You're listening to and watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz,
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
and we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in, or if you're with us through the Facebook Live streaming in. And we're very glad to welcome back to the show tonight Richard Rivera. He's the creator of Stabbity Bunny. He's been on our show a couple of times. He's been a guest since 2016. I checked the dates today. Yeah, so it's one of our long-standing friends of the show, and he's going to be talking about a Kickstarter that he's here to promote, and will tell us all about it in a few minutes. How you guys doing?
Doing pretty good.
That is a loaded question.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
You checked the thing. I am the last man standing so far.
Yep.
So
yep.
why don't you tell them what happened there?
I woke up this morning and felt a little icky, and so I took one of those little special tests, and the line not only showed up, but it glowed. So I unfortunately have the COVID-19. But so it's other than some, like when I say I felt icky, I've got some like nasal stuff going on, and it actually started yesterday. But it's so light that I thought I was just having like allergies. Like this is just regular like midsummer hay fever, so I didn't think anything of it. Just went about my business. But yeah, no, I got the COVID. Yeah. So
let's hope that's as bad as it gets for you.
I hope so. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. So I'm last man standing.
Yeah,
it's me.
Yeah. Well, the good thing though is that this doesn't seem like it was from a con, so it would have been from just regular life, I guess.
The only thing I can guess is that I picked it up at the gym. That's that's about the only place I can think of.
Movie theater, possibly.
Maybe, but that was later. That was last week. And then I also my mother's birthday dinner was this weekend, but no one that was there has had any symptoms or has come down with anything. Okay. So I'm assuming it's either, like I said, at the movie theater, maybe at the gym, someplace like that. Just some random happenstance. But on the bright side, I'm sitting home studying for the bar, and it's not like I've got any place to be either. So I can just stay home and chill. And also, it's like dropped my voice an octave. So now I've got like a little deeper voice, which is it's working in my favor. No one can touch me, but I can make them want to.
Okay. So maybe for our song that we've been talking about, you can do the spoken word intro, and I could come in.
You handle Tina. I'll be Ike.
Okay.
Interesting dynamic. I can see it.
So we're just going to go through some of our opening formalities real quick because we want to get Rich on. But I am a year older now. I'm really fucking old. And yes, I'm old. I'm old. I'm old as sand. But I did get some cool presents out of it. You guys want to see some?
Yeah, for sure.
Yay.
Okay, yeah. These are from the other half paid homage to how friggin' indie rock I am behind me, and in that I got the box set of the Captain and Tennille TV specials.
Nice.
So there you go with that. Our good friend Tito got me this wonderful T-shirt of the Freak Brothers from Amoeba. So maybe I am a little more indie in the comics that I can represent there. My good friend Vince got me this wonderful. I can't say it's wonderful because I haven't opened it yet, but it looks great. It's the Art of Jim Lee Volume 1.
Oh, nice.
DC, and a really nice package there. So, always nice when people knock one out of the park. I did get an anonymous gift. But somebody who seems to know my taste. So I got Black Orchid, the Funko Pop, and this is from the Earth Day exclusive from Walmart. So this is 80% going green packaging on this one, and nice Bronze Age character to get. Usually with the birthday, I do go out. Last few years, been doing trips, around my birthday, and we didn't want really to go too far because of variants and things like that. So it was very low key, but I did go to a local baseball game, and haven't been to the Trenton Thunder in 3 years. And all I know is I'm not going to go to a ballpark where they have a superhero-based mascot and not walk away with something. So here's Cloud Man.
Oh, no, he's so cute.
So nice little, nice little birthday gifts that pull double duty as our Geek Gets for the show. So, anybody else get some cool stuff?
I did
2
a couple
weeks.
things.
Okay.
Just a couple things. Just a few little things.
Okay.
I also got a few little things for you, Bill, for your birthday that you will be getting soon.
I love birthday gifts.
I haven't gotten to the post office yet, but I did.
Yep.
And this will be considered a Geek Get, even though it's not a Geek Get. I got my car back from the
good
after a month, one full month since. For those of you who don't know, we got into a bit of a car accident. We were hit from behind, and so I've been without my trusty steed for about a month because of craziness. But called them up today, and they had the car ready, so swung by my way home, picked up that car, dropped off the rental, and I got my car back. But in the meantime, I've also been slowly collecting more of the Thor: Love and Thunder McDonald's toys. I've noticed it, and Bill, I don't know if you noticed this as well, but and this goes with my other one that I do also have, which is the Thor with the axe with Stormbringer. I've noticed that the McDonald's around here don't have more than one or two different variants. So
they have the ones by me have all been like one toy.
Yeah. So it's
that's interesting.
You get the one, and then the next delivery they might get a brand new one, but you only get one at a time. They're not really carrying more. But I've got these three, which is pretty great to go with the fact that I did see the movie this past weekend. It was wonderful. And we can maybe talk about it in a future episode.
Yeah, I think I may go on Sunday, so which is very early for me right now in the film's run, but I may go Sunday, and
I do have one more Geek Get here. And for those of you who do know that we do love what we do in the shadows, and I did get a Daytona brand human alcohol beer, which I'm really excited about because the show just came back. I'm super happy, and now I get to wear this every Wednesday so I can watch my episodes with a Daytona t-shirt. Anyway,
cool. Now, Caleb, we know you've been studying. Did you get anything cool to kind of dull the blow of?
I got a few things. So I went up to Barnes and Noble this past week and got a couple of these, and I think I showed off one package before, but they have these little, I don't know what you call them. They're not bookmarks, but they're little page markers, and they are magnetic. Cool. So you like clip them on the page, especially for like omnibuses or whatever, and they're all the little Universal monsters. So I've got the Mummy and the Wolfman, and Frankenstein's monster, and Dracula. So I've got those little cutesy things, and then last but not least, excuse me. Added to my vinyl collection and picked up a copy of The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance.
Nice.
I never was a super huge MCR fan, but this is one of my favorite like concept albums of all time. Like I adore this album from front to back. It's all like it's legitimately, after I listened to it, and I think this is still true. This is an album that like achieved like classic status as far as what it is very early on in its life. And I think it's earned that. So love this whole album. So I'm excited. I haven't opened it yet, so I'm excited to finally check it out. But
in keeping with the show, there's a lot of alignment with Gerard Way being pre MCR was a DC Comics intern, and then oversaw the Young Animal line and Grant Morrison's involvement with MCR. So and they're Jersey boys too, like me.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, I didn't know they were Jersey boys.
New Jersey. Yeah, there was this brief period where Jersey had this kind of like between New Brunswick and Sayreville, like this, a pretty robust like emo scene. Probably the two biggest bands to come out of that were My Chemical Romance and Thursday. And Thursday, I always thought were like a fantastic live band. I don't think
Thursday.
that comes across on record as well. I think they're a much better live band than they. And I know they had like a pretty long hiatus that appears to be over. It seems no band really breaks up. You know,
They always leave themselves the option.
There's
Oh,
always
I
a
mean, if we're going to
reunion,
talk
but-
about Gerard Way and comics, I mean, Umbrella
Yeah.
Academy. So
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
yeah. Oh no,
Yeah,
no.
that
I mean,
Going to
that
his
too. Yeah.
Finishing with his third season, going into a fourth season for Netflix. I think they've already have they confirmed.
Yeah,
there will be
I'm
a fourth
behind.
Season, so
That and The Boys, I'm
Same.
behind.
Same.
That's my
Yeah, The
summer. You know, since I don't have to worry about other shows.
season 3 was.
Those will be my. Yeah,
Season 3
you
of The
made
Boys
faces
was
there.
insane.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Awesome.
enough of us talking. You know, let's bring on a guest. What the hell?
So let me add him to our stream here. He's been waiting so patiently in our
Yeah.
our spacious green room.
Green room. There we are.
There
Hey.
he is.
Yay.
So welcome to the show, Richard Rivera. Rich, you have graced us a number of times in the show. Been a guest a few times since 2016. Very happy to have you again. How you
glad
doing?
to be here. Good.
It's very good to hear. Now, I have been in the presence of greatness in how you pitch Stabbity Bunny to people walking by, and just apart from Stabbity Bunny, Rich is also the EVP of Scoot Comics, which is the all ages imprint for Scout. So, you know, if you want to talk to us about some of the goings on there, we'd be very happy to hear that too. But there's nothing like watching Rich pitch Stabbity Bunny to people who do not know a thing about it. So, since you are here to talk about the Kickstarter for Volume 2, why don't we open the door there for you to tell people, if they are unfamiliar with Stabbity, what it's about?
Well, I don't know. No. I'm going to do the Kickstarter version because it's kind of been updated a few times. You've heard some of the older pitches, but
Yep.
basically, we say Stabbity Bunny is Supernatural meets Taken, but with all female leads, and a little girl and her plush bunny that's been passed down through the generations must face an ancient evil that's been stalking her family for a century.
There you go.
The quick elevator pitch.
Yes, yes.
Little-
And you know, so you know what? It's not like Stabbity's around here or anything, but you know, so you needn't worry. I mean, you've seen what Stabbity can do. He's an inanimate object, but let's just say he's got a friend. You know,
Okay.
He's got some internal qualities.
yes, yes.
Internal.
And why don't you tell us
Spirit of the story.
about the Kickstarter, the campaign that you
All right.
Initiated?
Yeah, that's actually, it is Scout Comics' first official Kickstarter. So it kind of made some sort of sense here to bring the bunny who started the Kickstarter, you know, back in 2015, kind of come full circle for the conclusion of that first story arc. So this is for Volume 2, well, also Volume 1, of course, for people who have not heard of the bunny and want to jump on board. But this will be the very first time that issue 12, there's a hardback, self-published of the first 6 issues. This will be the first time that issue 12, which is the conclusion, finally, a very long-awaited conclusion. We you know, as a team, we had a lot of we've gone through a lot here, and you know, as the whole world has, but we had extra, including even a volcano was involved with one of our people. Liesel Buenaventura lives in the Philippines, and she was actually really close to a volcanic eruption, so she had that and had to evacuate, and earthquakes and things that go along, you know, seismic activity that sometimes accompanies volcanoes, and her COVID experience was completely different from ours. I mean, hers was enforced by the military. You couldn't even get children's toys could not come across, you know, the barricades, etc. And quite different penalties than we had for you know, going against flouting the mask rules or going. You wouldn't do that because you would have just been taken out. But yeah, it was. So anyway, besides COVID in the Philippines, coming back a little bit to the bunny here, we've really been overwhelmed by the reception. It'd been a long time since the bunny had anything new out. And of course, we Scout has a following, and those two groups came together, and we funded in like 4 hours, and we're now on our third stretch goal, fourth stretch goal. So if we hit 10,000, we're about almost at 9,500 right now. If we hit 10,000, we're going to do a this will be a stretch goal where everybody who's getting physical items gets a not unlocked, not a postcard, but they get a free variant that we're printing just for this Kickstarter. They get a free Emmett story with a special cover. That's going to be I think it's Tales of Suspense 80. Those of you who are old as sand may remember the Red Skull holding up the cosmic cube, and Captain America kind of wincing from all the arcing energies and everything that goes on. So it's Emmett holding a big spanner instead, and the bunny and Grace are there in the foreground.
If you want, I actually do have the Kickstarter pulled up here, and we can actually see the front page if you want, so that people who are watching can actually see what the landing page would show them. If it will let me now.
Ta-da! Yes.
There we go. Yes. And I mean, like you said, we've got looks like almost 9,500 out of the over the original 3,000 goal. So that's excellent. With 19 days left from the time that this airs, so definitely go check it out. We'll put the link to the Kickstarter page in the show notes, as well as in the chat later on today. So that if you're interested, you should definitely stop by and check it out, and hopefully play.
And there's a very, very simple way to get to it as well. If you or you don't have to search too much. Just go to scoutcomics.com/Kickstarter, and it'll take you to any Kickstarter that we do officially as a company. Of course, a lot of our creators thrive on Kickstarter. You know that right now David Byrne has one going for a Stake spinoff Jessame, issue 3, I think, and of course the mega popular Charlie Stickney and the White Ash is going right now as well. Plus Joel Rodriguez is doing his Dust County Chronicles, and we might be Travis Gibbs. Voodoo Nations may have already closed by now. It was in the last few hours of his campaign, but that may have closed as well. But one of the really interesting things that we're going to be offering here, and you can see it pretty well here, even from this angle. So we're going to be doing the press works, which James Hake was at one of our printers, and he noticed the press plates, the printing plates that were getting ready to go be recycled for aluminum, and and he's like, can we get those? And he had a good relationship with the printer, and so from the volume 2, we're actually going to have the printing plates, and so there'll be the ability to get a little piece of Stabbity history there. Each one, of course, unique. There's only one. There's one cyan, one magenta, one yellow, and one black from each page. So those are made out of aluminum and one-of-kind collectibles that are one of the things you can also get through the Kickstarter as well. I saw you go a little bit down to the 95 there, and you'll see the metal version of the of the Ralph Singh cover that was done for us. Really love his take on that particular entity there. No spoilers, I guess, but he's got a really different take on it. Of course, he did Xenober, and he's done a number of things. He's got just a really talented guy.
Nice. That's really cool. Those printer plates, that was actually something that I looked at, just because I don't collect a lot of art, but some of us do. And and it's that's something that you don't see very often. Obviously, original page art is something that is a staple at comic conventions and at artist tables for artists.
And once in a blue moon, you'll also find the color guides. But
I was going to say, the color guides are the closest that you usually see. This is the first time I've heard of anybody doing the printing plates. That's kind of fantastic. That's novel.
Yeah, I hadn't either, and I think part of the reason is it's because we asked a different printer about it, and it would have been thousands for them to send us the printing plates, and so you see where it becomes impractical pretty quickly. But they and I have to tell you, this is one from Agent of World, but you can see like there's a little transfer from the from the magenta, and some of these are amazing because we don't they are cut down to be that size, because the printing plate itself has 8 panels to it or whatever, so it's huge. But the some of them have been we had on Whatnot, we had some convention sales, if you will, where we would run live and continuous, from like 11 in the morning to like 3 at night sometimes, 3 the next morning, I mean, and some of them are just incredible because, like, the ink transfers again, and some of them are carrying other bits and pieces and gobs and cracks and things on there, and it's a new reinterpretation of the art. You'll never see the art quite that way anywhere else.
Yeah, that
is pretty cool. But it's one of those things where with comics, there's obviously a collectible aspect to comic books and comic book ephemera, and things like that. It's just something that is unique, and it's it's pretty cool.
Well, somebody like me,
Kickstarter about anywhere else.
Yeah. As somebody like me who's a process junkie, like I'm the kind of person, like I'll go up to artists at cons and everything and just talk to them like, hey, do you, like, I see you've got your finished pages, do you have process pages for sale? Because for somebody who's so interested in how the medium is created, this is, I think for folks like us who love the tangible aspect of these things.
I'm going to edit part of this one here, but here's a black one, and this is from Darkland. But I on this one I got all 4 of the different colors, and you can see like transfer on the back there, and
kind of set up an Andy Warhol look to it.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the blue, or cyan. So yeah.
Well, I think things like this are going to become like I said, I've never heard of anybody doing this, but the collectability of it becomes more when you consider how much stuff is just going purely digital now. And that kind of thing doesn't exist. And for folks like I said, folks like us here who we like the tangible aspect of comics, I read digital comics the same as anything else, but I've got a room full of books. I've got a room full of long boxes and stuff like that because I enjoy holding it. I enjoy the process of the print, the smell of the ink and everything else. And so I think from that aspect, that is a really, like, I'm a little kind of excited now. I may try to. That's cool. Yeah,
I tell you,
I'm intrigued.
We've got the ability to buy. We've separated splash pages because we want to be kind of random, because you can imagine with 168 pages times 4, how many of them there will be. So rather than let people try to pick or whatever, it's going to be either a random page or a splash. There's one where you can get, I think you get a splash in like 5 random pages or something, but just to point out that besides the regular splash pages, what we would also include in that would be the chapter breaks. And the chapter breaks are going to be the covers from 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And there'll also be the cover galleries actually too. So there's going to be some great ones. I mean, I'll probably try to see if I can somehow get some myself, because they make for a great display for sure. And I'm with you on that. I mean, I've got we will not have this conversation because I'll go into trauma. But back when original art days, I mean, the original art that I had as a collection, I could sell like a single page. If I had them, I would be able to sell a single page and with many of them get a house. I mean, I had a lot of the Daredevil 158 pages. I had covers from
Wow.
Daredevil. I had I'm sure you remember the Hela coming down with the day Death died or whatever, Hela coming down and about touch Thor. I had that splash page. Um, so I'm just saying though. So back then you could get a decent Frank Miller page at the very beginning for like $125 or something. Like, so I now know I could never ever capture one of those again. So this is still tied in. This is the ground level of this collectible. And, once somebody gets it, they're the only ones that have it. And if they want to sell it for something, it's whatever they want to sell it for, whatever somebody will pay. So, I myself am not buying them to flip them. I'm buying ones that I want to keep. But there's room for flippers in this world too. Collectors, speculators can happily coexist, I think.
Yeah,
I get most of my stuff personalized. That's my problem. Is like 95% of my collection just says to Caleb.
Sure.
I do have a question. One of the things that we've talked to a lot of creators, be they independent creators or folks who are hooked up with a company like Scout, about why they choose from a creator's aspect to do Kickstarter, to do this crowdfunding. But one thing, at least I haven't been able to talk to many people from the management side of a publisher like Scout on what Kickstarter does for a publishing company. And we're seeing more and more of that now, especially, Dark Horse has got, their stuff going on. You're seeing more of the publishing houses go to Kickstarter. What does Kickstarter do for you guys from a publisher's aspect? We know what it does from the creator's aspect, give or take.
Well, to tell you the truth, I'm not sure how the other companies run theirs exactly, but speaking to ours, I mean, we're a creator owned, all the IP is creator owned, and really, I think everybody in any of the management roles is either an existing creator or has something in the works.
Right.
So a lot more sympathetic to that point of view, and the way that Scout is going to run it is basically the main goal is to pay for the print run of the trades that we're making. And if you think about that, that is nearly 100% in the creator's favor, because when a creator, if we did a print run, if they did a print run for me right now and it cost $10,000, well, when we have sold $10,001, then Scout and I start splitting the royalties there. But this is going to give creators a big leg up, because if we paid for the print run, when you sell $1 worth, not $10,001 worth, you begin splitting royalties. So we've got the HQ folks. There's a team of about 10 people that do the whatnot and do all that fulfillment all the time for us. So the fulfillment end is already there. And James Hake, our president, was like, we've got all the pieces here. We've got Joey Galvez and Nate Johnson, and so we got people who are already working in marketing and social media, and we've got the headquarters staff to pack stuff up and to make sure that everything arrives, in perfect condition. We even had a couple of just random people do our because we have a monthly subscription box that took our monthly subscription box and they rate like the condition of what they got and everything, and it was 9 8s across the board. Not that we're saying that happens every time, but in this case, he said it was one of the best boxes, condition wise, et cetera, that he had ever received. So we did make, we have a number of great products too, along, and also everything comes together. When Scout does something, they always cross the streams of revenue, and we've got comic tags, which is another James Hake innovation, which is, if you want to think about like it comes in a little folder. Like I'm trying to remember, I still have some of them. I think there was something else that was a promotion. It came in little DC sized, like the cover, and in this case actually a few pages too, but this is just like the folder that comes in. You open it up, and then inside there's a basically what looks like a gift card, but it's got comic book art on it, and it's got a scratch code on the back. You scratch that off, and you go to our site, and you can redeem it for a digital graphic novel. that goes with everything you got there. So kind of making digital collectible and letting retailers get in on the digital end of it because they can sell these cards. So we've got that. We got the Pressworks, and we just did an add-on with our title boxes, which is where Scout collects the individual issues, but sprinkles in maybe holographic covers or things that are specific to that box randomly, as well as collector issues. So there's a few Stabbity ones on there, and I've yet to see. It could happen, but I've yet to see one of those boxes open up without with maybe I saw one time that had only one holographic thing in it, but it was a number one, and I don't even have one of those.
That's just pretty cool. I have to say I've been very impressed with with Scout and Scoot's output over the past couple of years. Just seeing some really great titles, some really great number ones come out. For Scoot,
and in terms of Scoot, I also like that you do have a number of titles that have had the number one issues at very low price points as an introduction, which is I think is a wonderful promotional device to get people reading, because there's a few books I never would have read if it wasn't so low.
Well, I tell you, the Scoot's on the Scoot end of it. And it'll becoming more obvious when we start re-soliciting things in Diamond. But the Scoot's evergreen. So while our creators might have a longer journey, like Soulstream number one, we did a second printing of Soulstream. We sold out of Soulstream number one. It took a little while because we printed a lot of them, and then we sold out. We printed another 9,000 of Soulstream number one. And anything that we have is either a number one or a trade or a standalone issue. Another little thing we did on that end was the standalone issues aren't number ones every time, to where it's like, which order does it go in? It's Cat Dad and Supermom, and Elefart Never Forgets. Cat Dad and Supermom, What Makes a Hero? Not only to help the retailer on the evergreen end of it, nothing needs to ever be in a back issue bin, or if you sell something well, you can always order more. But also the consumer, there's no barrier to entry at all. It's like, is this which of the 8 Spider-Men is this? Is this the prequel to the crossover or the post crossover universe change? It's like I don't know if my child's ever read this, and it's like, that would be okay, because this is all they ever need to, like when we were younger, and you would go and you could buy a Superman issue, and he's going to fight the parasite, and you read it and you enjoy it, and there's some other threads that are that go on through it, but you didn't have to have a PhD in comics to unravel it.
I mean, they're both good, but like nowadays, Superman punching Parasite would be the entire issue,
Yeah,
as
true.
the part of the fight, and then the buildup would be the 2 issues before that, and so the decompression. There's things I love about decompression, but yeah, we did grow up in an era where if something wasn't a done in one, it was an anomaly.
Yeah,
and
I'm gonna jump over to something. We got San Diego, which I'll be leaving Sunday to go to our San Diego con, and we're going to be premiering a number of things there, including we have a thing called Scripta Comics, and the Scripta Comics, there's a contest, and the people who win that, we take their comic and we make it a comic book, and perhaps super appropriate for this show, we've got Trance, which is LGBTQIA plus. They're basically a queer coven of witches, where there's being gay murders are going on in their town, and they use some of their abilities to try to figure it out. They're also owners, and they run a nightclub as well. They've got, what I kind of enjoy about this, because I found that a lot of like the queer as folk or the L word or whatever kind of concentrated on one area pretty heavily. This has representation almost across the board, and more to come, I'm sure. But the interiors of this are black and white, just because he changed colorist, and we didn't have time to get those colored pages in. But it's a great book. It's a Joey Capuana, and Pablo Moreno Collar is the artist on that.
That's awesome.
Great. Yeah, with San Diego, of course, being now that it's back this year. I know it was around in a form last year as well, but this is the really big return to form, hopefully for SDCC. So that's really exciting to go and attend for you this year. Is there anything else that you would want to get out of that show for both yourself as well as for the visibility of Scout and Scoot and the books that have been published and that are coming up?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, we'll be pretty prominent and easy to find. We're in Dark Horse's old spot. Our Dark Horse will not be there, and we've got their spot, which is pretty high visibility and a great spot. Don Hanfield and a number of other people have worked on laying that out, and we've got the full. It's going to be the full show for us. We've got the big lit panels and custom work on all of that, so it's going to be great. Yeah, we have a number of meetings already planned. We are connected with Mosaic. It's one of the top 3 talent / production agencies, et cetera, in Hollywood. So we have meetings with them quite regularly. And unlike even people who have to, oh, my cousin knows somebody who works for Amazon, and I can maybe get this script in. I think we all know how that works out. It's like, oh yeah, your script. Thank you very much. But we've got people approaching us. Hey, this guy, this star, this producer is looking for this kind of stuff. What do you guys have? And so we are, that's a very, very active end of Scout's business model, where we are always making those presentations. We have a multi-hundred page, I think it is, IP catalog that's fresh per quarter with addendums and things on that. So that's something we really strive to do is get our creators work out there in multimedia as well. And we've got a number of things pending. And of course, the flat window shopping option, that's one thing, but we have things that have, I think these particulars have been mentioned, but for like Unicorn, the movie, it's come along quite a way, including, a very large budget, etc. I don't know if I can talk about anything else beyond that right now. Also, speaking of Freak Brothers, the artist of Stabbity Bunny, Dwayne Biddix, is I think I can't really say specifically, except that if you look on his IMDb, you'll see that he's a character designer for the current season of Freak Brothers, as well as Slippin' Jimmy, which of course is Better Call Saul kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice. Just out of curiosity, how many submissions do you get to the scripted comics thing? And you guys have a pretty good flow with that?
Well, it's actually that's run by Thunder, and we're affiliated with, and we help the winners and make the comic books come about. But I'm not really sure of the number. I mean, it's a fairly healthy competition. I'm not involved in that aspect, so I wouldn't know the number of people there. I do know that as far as submissions, we get, of course, for comics, we get that on a daily basis.
Nice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Very cool.
Now, you've mentioned earlier that, again, the Kickstarter is for both 1 and 2, and that, now that we got to issue 12, this is the end of the story. But there are some offshoots for Stabbity, and I was wondering if you wanted to talk about anything like Stabbity Ever After or Shadowplay, or you actually have a crossover coming up too, right?
Right. Well, first, this is the end of the first story arc. The volume, the next, there were 3 story arcs already in the can. The next one, Grace's, we skipped from her being 7 to her being 15. She turned 16 in the story arc. So she's in high school. And notice the storytelling was pretty much from a child's point of view with cartoony childlike art. So there's going to be different art, a whole different perspective. I mean, a a 16-year-old with her life experience. We no longer, have the same. When I say no longer have the same filters on, that's not exactly true, because I never put inappropriate situations or language
Right.
in anything I write ever. Just I don't. But uh, speaking of Shadowplay and crossovers, she's in high school, and guess whose high school she goes to? She goes to Bard and Joy's high school. So
Ah,
the three of them are going to
okay.
be, together quite a bit here and there in her first arc there. Then Storm Pirates, of course. I never really laid out exactly where everything was as far as in time, and technology has changed some, but the base technology hasn't dramatically changed that would show up in every kind of, it's not like, corded phones versus cell phones, or the big mobile phones of the past. But so it's in that range, but that's how we kind of sneak in um, shadow play with Bard and Joy, and not really realize that Grace was 7 or 8 years behind them. And then when she goes to high school, they're in high school as well. But Storm Pirates are of kids who've just, well, two of them recently graduated high school, and and they deal more with the upper realms of demigods and gods, etc. In that universe. Grace is dealing more with Earth, which with issue 12 you'll really understand why that is. And of course, Shadow Play are the realms metaphysically beneath Earth. So all of those kids eventually will come together, and there'll be a team of, there'll be the 6 kids together, maybe 7. We'll see.
So I'm curious, like that is one thing I noticed about reading Stabbity was, that there was nothing, like you said, the way that you quote unquote filtered it. There were no things of like sexual violence or thrown in the mix, which I really appreciated, especially in a book that is so female driven, or matriarchal in the way that it's presented. But the book doesn't back away from violence in some aspects. Most of the time it's shown through the mysticism. Considering your sensibilities and the story that you're wanting to tell, and the kind of self limitations that you're putting on what you're willing to put in your stories and what you just won't, how do you balance that? How do you decide how far to take the violence in these type of stories?
Well, a lot of the times, the violence, even like I think there might be 2 pages with blood out of 300 and something pages. A lot of times it's either off screen, or we don't really show the last moment. And allowing reader participation, if you allow a lot of reader participation as far as filling in those gaps with your
Yeah,
violence, then
between the panels,
then it's age appropriate, because a
right?
12-year-old will imagine something one way, a 40-year-old will imagine something much worse. A 5-year-old is like, oh, won't even get
Bunnies.
the decapitation, because like there was one thing where he put chains around somebody's head with the
Yeah,
top of their head, and he does that, and you hear a thud. Well, I don't think, unless they're Walking Dead fans, probably that many 7, 8, 9-year-olds would get what even happened.
Yeah. No, and that's actually such a great point. And one of the reasons why I love Stabbity is you do have a lot of confidence in your readers, and that kind of confidence works for younger readers as well as older readers, older cynical, jaded readers, maybe. In being able to not just follow the story, but also enjoy what they're reading and be able to be surprised still. For younger readers who might be reading Stabbity Bunny as one of like their first comics, or one of an early comic book career, are going to get a really great story that they're going to be able to follow all the way through. And for older readers that have seen a lot of supernatural books before, horror books and all ages books, they still get those surprises. They still get that kind of interesting narrative to keep them coming back for more.
Well, thank you. I'll say that there was one exception to that, to an extent. Um, Emmett's story, and that's why it was Emmett's story and not Stabbity Bunny 10.5. Because Emmett's story, shows the results of a hate crime, etc. So, that kind of imagery and everything, I kept that outside of the main run, so that it's still recapped and alluded to in the main series, but it's not part of that story. So there are a number of stories that I could tell about a number of the characters which aren't within the Stabbity Bunny 1 through 12 age range, that I can just split off and tell that story.
That's what's great about the visual medium, though. It makes it so fluid, so that you can take those stories and you can apply them where they need to be told, and to the same extent, like you said, between the panels, to allow the reader's mind to fill those things in. And I think you handled that really well. Now I'm curious, before we get too much further, though, and I should have known this from the book, but because there's a 68 Mustang. I'm assuming like her car. I think it's like a 67 or a 68. Looking at it, but obviously from your backdrop, you're a car guy. So what's your just for my own validation, what's your favorite muscle car? Do you have a favorite?
I don't. I think different aspects at different times. Not that I'm trying to be too wishy-washy here, but there are times when different ones appeal to me. I mean, as you can see, there's a whole range up here, even 30s and 40s, and it's just a whole range. I mean, Shelby GT is not too bad, I guess.
Nah, not too bad.
No, not too bad.
Right.
Yeah, So, but yeah, it's a whole range. I appreciate. I mean, I remember fondly even like a Firebird, like a 87 Firebird or something that I actually that my other half at the time had, and I like that. But that kind of stuff, it's real. I guess that way, I can always be pleased by a car show or whatever, and seeing whatever that full range of things. But yeah, that's there's a lot to enjoy there. One thing going along with your point about the visual medium, though, that I think I've even discussed on this show before, but you can also do some things in comic books it's impossible to do anywhere else. And there was an interaction when we first introduced Emmett. Well, he was a mechanic, we were introduced him there, but when we introduced Emmett and his home life, and he's talking about, I don't want to go to this party and blah blah blah, and you hear the person off panel around the corner going, oh, you love it, you'll once you get there and have a few beers, well, I'm not dancing, says Emmett, who looks just like me. He goes, well, once you have a few beers, you'll love it, and maybe we should walk. And I don't know, your knee's been giving you trouble, and then it's like, well, I'm feeling up to it, and then touches the hand of the person, and you see that it's a white bearded man standing behind him. So you kind of a way to hopefully, for someone who wasn't in that mindset already, it's like, this sounds like our relationship, but wait, it's two men, for somebody who might have been resistant to that, you've already delivered that whole message before they realize that it's been delivered. And not that I'm into, ambush writing or whatever, but I'm just saying it's a natural part of the story. But I when you can present another perspective in a gentle way, why not? Because people's defenses, especially nowadays, go up.
Well, it's empathy in action, right? I mean, that's
right.
It's the same. We've had this discussion on the show. I come from, my family are very fundamentalist Christians, and we've had that conversation. And the whole, the lifestyle was like, well, my lifestyle is sitting on the couch and watching TV, petting my dogs and paying my taxes. Like that's like, I do the same things. So it's not, it's just, it's these little things that you're taking issue with, which, by the way, I love that panel, because there's one line in there that says, we haven't been out in a long time or whatever. And I read that line before the big reveal. I was like, it's interesting that they worded it that way, that we haven't been out for that long. And then the reveal kicked in, and it was awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, Emmett's story was very hard, very hard to write. So yeah,
Yeah, and we certainly appreciated you when you came on the show just before it came out, and thank you for being using us as a platform to tell the back, in some ways the backstory behind it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I think we all can echo here that it's a very affecting piece. So
Well, thank you. Yeah,
I'm glad that's within the mix there. I'm very
yeah,
glad.
and kind of standalone, so that that's another evergreen aspect to it. So that can always uh, come out every June.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very happy to have found a home with Scout, and continue to be honored to grow and to work with them. Um, one update that you might not have. I'm now co-publisher of Scout Proper as well.
Oh wow,
Mhm. Oh,
very cool.
great.
Working alongside Charlie Stickney, the other co-publisher, and of course, you know, James is always our go-to man, the president idea man, and you know, a great leader, because he's one of those great leaders that there's nothing that's below him to do, and he participates in every level of everything, and is one of the hardest workers. So whenever your leader is one of the hardest workers, that really helps the team.
Yeah.
Mhm. All
That's
right.
really
Well,
awesome.
let's head towards the last relay in here. Handing the baton off to Steve. Steve, what else do you have for Richard?
Well, Richard, like I mentioned, I've been really enjoying what Scout has been putting out over the past several years. Especially with all the issues that happened to every publisher during that first year of the COVID pandemic.
Hmm.
I think that Scout's really come back with some really great ranges of different genres. Things that Stabbity Bunny fits really well in. Over here with all ages, and also with the horror books a little bit, and with a couple other things. For your personal next projects, where would you want to really explore a little bit more if you're not working on something that's related to Stabbity Bunny? Something, a new genre or new something that you want to work with when it comes to Scout or Scoot?
Well, I already I've ever since elementary school, if they would let me make it a comic, I did, and ever since then, regardless of that, I've written treatments and put things aside. So I already have um, other uh, scoop books, and one that's been nearly done for 5 or 6 years now, actually. Um, and then um, I've got some uh, superhero treatment of a couple of things that stories that I want to tell, but also, as you know, some of the uh, by other people. I'm not going to say mine will be entertaining, but other people, some of the more entertaining stories have come from uh, people who have stories that they kind of, well, Watchmen or whatever, where they wrote it for other characters, and you can
Mhm.
see the echoes of those characters in there, but then they take them in a whole different direction. And of course, that's been on steroids,
Mhm.
Evil Superman Part 58 or whatever. But done really well sometimes, boys. Um, irredeemable. But I think that there are. I'll just say my one of my uh, oldest loves in comic books, alongside JLA and Avengers, would be Legion of Superheroes, and I, as I tend to do, did an exhaustive rewriting of ways to interpret all the races, and what the Legion of Superheroes really is, why it came about, and all of those things. So, I mean, that kind of story could still be presented, like, as a non-branded space opera of
Mhm.
sorts, and still be told. So we live in as you know, we live in a fantastic age where the gatekeepers, can't stop you anymore. And if you've got the will to make it happen, you can. So you can tell those stories.
All right,
Well,
very
I'm looking
cool.
forward to that.
Very cool. All right,
Let
we're
me
heading
know.
into the
Let me know.
last lap there for you, Caleb. Caleb, here's the baton. What else do you have for Richard here?
Well, speaking of the gatekeepers, so my last question will kind of revolve around your aspect as co-publisher. Kind of put your board of directors cap on a little bit. During COVID, a lot of things have changed, right? Like we saw at the very beginning of COVID how Diamond things happened with Diamond, and we saw the fall after that. So, from your aspect, not only as a creator but also as a decision maker for a publisher, what do you see are the best avenues to put comics, kind of maybe even break out of the direct market, but to put comics in the hands of people who aren't the outside of the four walls of the comic book shop, who to maybe grow an audience that is not already looking to be sold a product?
Well, it's kind of been comic books. Took a number of turns where in the golden age, you could go to a convenience store, you could go to a drugstore, you can go to a grocery store, etc., and they were there, and they were easily accessible and easily consumable. And I think that's why other markets, be it European or Japan, etc., they have a much wider distribution, bigger acceptance of our our build a wall around them and concentrate these people into this area and get as much wallet as we can formula without inviting new people in. We're seeing the repercussions of that. um i i, I think eventually, and maybe the easiest thing to do is like with a evergreen product like Scoot that's easily accessible, is to start working that into other markets and kind of reintroduce these books can be here without, and stand on their own and be enjoyed and be um, uh, picked up without having to make it a niche market. So I think making some inroads into that would be healthy. Simon and Schuster, we've got, of course, one of the companies has a deal with Simon and Schuster. They don't do periodicals. They do have a magazine arm, I think, but like a lot of of course, I'm surrounded by scoop books, but not the ones I need right now. Um, uh, a number of the books I made were 8x8. They even did fairly well in the comic book stores, but we're going to be introducing them. Actually, Monday we'll be giving the pitch to buyers for the January. This is how far ahead Simon and Schuster is for the January through April season.
Okay.
But yeah, I think we've got a series of books called Launch, and there's like initially 1, 2, and 3 level of launch, and level 1 was double page splashes and sounds and letters and very simple action. Level 2, vocabulary goes up some, still single pages, but then level 3 has panels, like 1, 2, and 3 panel pages, very easy to try to learn to read and how you navigate a comic book. So the that part of Launch, the purpose was to bridge the gap between picture books, which are one panel comic books, and sequential art. So if we can take those and then do comic books from those same ones, then we could, people could start with reading Bandit's Imagination as a level 1 here, and then later read Bandit's Imagination as a floppy comic book. And reverse can happen as well. Take those books which are already aimed at an older market and bring them down to that level, or simplify their storytelling to that level.
Yeah, that's really that is really great, because it's providing something for kids, especially because that's the age that they used to be able to much more easily discover comics. Like you said, if it's at convenience stores or if it's at the grocery store, mom or dad is off buying and shopping, doing whatever, and you can stand at that magazine rack with the comics and just flip through them and find something that you enjoy. But yeah, I mean, being able to find some way to bridge that gap between the picture book and sequential art is just there is something there. There's something that
Mhm.
definitely needs to happen there. So
we'll also, as it branches out, there's going to be a launch interactive, which will be a multi-choice adventure as well. We
Mhm.
can't say choose your own adventure because that is, of course,
Yeah.
but it is a interactive
Oh,
book where you make,
select your own journey.
yes, exactly,
or
something like
what was the first the Which Way book? Yeah, so
Which
there's
way?
ways around that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they're just like with uh, gaming cards or whatever,
Mhm.
where Magic the Gathering did so well, and now you can't have a game with a mechanic of tap or or
Yeah.
whatever, or those symbols. So we steered well clear of their area,
Mhm.
but it's a bigger idea than one brand,
Yay,
so
lawyers.
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, the yes, indeed. um
Mhm.
the yes, I'm a fan of the lawyer. So
You're the one. Okay.
yes,
The
yes.
one. It is the fan.
No,
The
I said
fan.
a fan of the lawyer, not
Yeah.
the fan of a lawyer, but that
I
works.
mean, that kind of does open up to another question though. Like, so you have experience with people who are actually like in comic book law. Like, what is that world like?
Well,
And how do I get into it?
well, I think people that really specialize in that, I think that is I don't think that's a very large crowd, so
No,
there might
it's
be
a
some,
niche. Yeah.
might be some room for you there.
Yeah.
Um, and I, 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 I personally haven't really interacted that much with any of them. However, I do have some friends who have, just because like um, one creator came up with and document of and everything of Punchline before some other company did, um, DC, and so
Mhm.
nothing, there wasn't really much to do there, but certainly want to at least um, preserve your right to continue to make your character, which came out
Right.
4 years
Yeah.
before, etc. So,
Yeah.
um, so that's its own thing for sure. And I don't have to tell other lawyers here, but of the vast spectrum of specialization that can go on, and that lawyers very easily hand off. I'm great at this. I kind of know what you're talking about there, but really, this person knows the nuts and bolts of every detail of this off the top of their head. I think you should talk to them about
Mhm.
this. Um, I guess
Yeah.
like a general practice, a GP, or a you know ears, nose, and throat, or a podiatrist or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And Caleb, I can pass you off to somebody that has actually been on our show before.
Yep.
And a lot of his business doesn't come from comics, but it is part of his practice. But
He can do it if he can.
maybe
if
you
he
could be
needs
the
to.
first. That's the only law it's the only
Just
law you practice.
come up with a nice little sign.
Yeah. Yeah.
It better have multi panels on it.
Yep. Yeah. And four colors. Yeah.
Yes.
So
I can
in
hang
time.
the printing plates.
Yes,
And,
Yeah.
indeed,
Yeah.
indeed.
So, Rich, before we wrap up talking to you, do you want to just briefly go over what some of the Kickstarter levels are and some of the stretch goals and some of the rewards?
Sure. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, being a trade paperback, you know, we don't necessarily have as much of the collector speculator end of it, but we do have uh, one book that we put out there that's the metal cover and so on. But the base part of the Kickstarter is to get those first two trades out there. So if you don't have the trades at all, you can still just get the first trade. Maybe you want to just dip your toe in the waters. Of course, we got the digital, but we also have the digital collectible version of it. So you could get plain digital. You can get digital with a collectible card that lets you unlock the digital. You can get the trade paperbacks if you prefer that. If you're a collector, you can not only get those things, but you can get the process pieces. You can get the printing plates
Mhm.
from making the comic book that you're holding in your hand. Um, and we also have the metal collectible cover. The first stretch goal was a little I think from Craven's Last Hunt, where Spider-Man was coming out of the grave. Got one
Mhm.
with the bunny that way.
Yeah.
That was the first stretch goal. The second
It's
stretch
funny
goal.
how we all went into that posture really quick.
Yes, yes.
He's ingrained. Yeah.
I mean, our first 3 stretch goals did the basic things of here's something for free that's physical. Here's something that's unlocked that you couldn't buy before, and here's something digital that's free. And the next one is here's something completely free that's physical again, but it's going to be an entire variant issue of the comic book, which is going to be brand new.
Okay. Well, we're very glad that you're already funded, and hopefully we see that the total add up. So congratulations on that, and thank you very much for coming on the show. We're just going to talk a little bit about some current comics, so you're more than welcome to stay with us.
Sure.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
All right. Steve, you're always my lucky charm there, kicking off the discussion. So why don't you tell us about something you're reading that you're digging?
Definitely. And before we continue with that, I did want to mention that we do have the link in the stream right now for the Kickstarter, both the standard Kickstarter link as well as scoutcomics.com/Kickstarter. So, either way, if you want, you can go and check that out right here.
Okay.
It'll be in the comments.
Yeah, and
so-
we'll also put that up on our various points of contact as well.
Exactly.
So, yep.
So, and it's good because we've got about 3 weeks left on it. So, definitely check it out. So it was kind of tough trying to figure out which book to talk about this week because there actually were a lot of number ones that came out. I think it's just sort of the summer, like let's start a whole ton of series out. And so I decided to pick the number one, for a series that has been around for about 10 years, actually, that I have never actually read. And these two were kind of shocked that I hadn't read it. Now, I have read a few of the short stories that have been put out in anthologies over the past several years from Dark Horse, but I have never actually picked up a full book of Mind Management. So, Mind Management Bootleg, which is the new series from Matt Kint with art by Farrell Dalrymple. It's a great introduction for people who have not read Mind Management. I know the basic premise. I kind of understand, the realities of this world, of a super secret agency that exists, and it's filled with, psychics and spies and all sorts of people with supernatural powers to try and control the chaos of the world and keep people safe. Well, in this book, it establishes this book actually takes place in Zanzibar 10 years after a tragic situation that happened that Mind Management was unable to prevent. Just an absolute tragedy. And so this gentleman here is basically he grows up in Zanzibar. He's a native of the city, and he is a big comic book collector as well as a vintage vinyl collector and seller. And one of the things that he's noticed is that in his comic books, there's a lot.
Those
of
people
really
don't exist. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't exist. Like
They
nobody
don't
likes
exist.
music and comics. So weird. He's been noticing a lot of interesting, strange advertisements popping up in his comic books, just like the one that's on the front page, kind of enticing him and people who are reading this to come and check out a special address there in Zanzibar, which he does, and is sent on a series of tests that are crazy. There's a giant Chuck Norris kind of dude that attacks him with with karate and mixed martial arts that he has to somehow avoid. There's somebody asking very strange, weird, personal questions of him. All of this is essentially a test for a test on whether or not this kid is Mind Management material, which he finds out at the end that all those were not the real test. The real test was what happens towards the end. And he finds out some truth about who he is, where he comes from, and why he's so important to this Mind Management organization that heretofore he's never heard of, but plays an extremely prominent part in his life as well as the life of everybody on Earth. So it's a great introduction to mind management, it makes me want to go back and finally read all those books, which I've been meaning to do for the past 10 years, but I haven't.
Please do.
Yeah, I know. It's been sold to me so many times, but and I love Matt Kint, and so it's kind of a tragedy that I haven't read this yet. But this is a wonderful introduction. Mind Management bootleg number 1. For this series, it's going to be really cool. It really sets up something really interesting, and the art is absolutely fantastic with a lot of really great things in there, and also an advertisement that seems fake but is actually real. There is going to be a mind management board game that comes out in a few months, so check it out.
And I think they kickstarted that as well, if I'm not mistaken.
They did. They originally kickstarted it because I was reading some backstory on it, but I believe it releases in September or October of this year, around there.
And does Mind Management still have a home at Dark Horse? Is that still the publisher?
Yes. Yeah, this is still being published by Dark Horse. Yep.
Just want to make sure on that.
And I apologize for this little
Stabbity
explorer.
Kitty.
She just
Stabbity
Kitty. She loves to climb on comics, which means that I do have to replace those bags every once in a while.
Yeah, Rich, I don't know if you caught it, but at one point when you were talking, she was just staring straight on to the conversation, so that was really cute.
She can see inside your soul. It's just it happens.
Yeah. So, Rich, do you have a book that you wouldn't mind talking about that you're enjoying? Doesn't necessarily have to be a current book.
Well, yeah, because I have to tell you, when you read submissions on a daily basis,
the last thing you want to do is read it.
It's not the last thing I want to do. It's just like the last thing you might have time for is a lot of other comics. I mean, I still purchase, and have a stack of things that I want to get to. But there are certain comfort comics that you can read, and I love to read the various collections of the JLA JSA crossovers. You know what I mean? They have those in collections. I don't know how many. I think I have 5 of the books. I don't know if there were more than that. Some of them are out of print now, I think. But nothing to be coming onto the comic book scene back before a lot of rewrites of universes, etc., and to be able to pick up something that you're like, this with a feeling of history to it. It's like Star Spangled Kid, etc. When they would show up in those, which one of my other loves of my life, of course, was the 100-page Giants and all those. I mean, my goodness, to be able to pick up one of those, you read a brand new story, then you read
and
something
then you had the backstory. Yeah.
I mean, and see all these characters you never would have known anything about otherwise.
Yeah.
So
I just also think it's interesting that the 100-page super spectacular formula still survives, and I don't think people really understand this, in the Archie digests. The Archie digests always start off with 1 or 2 new stories, and then it's the back material. And that was very much our experience during that time. And Rich, I think one thing of us being of similar age, I do think that some younger readers were at disadvantages of what came before. That there may have been references in stories, but they didn't have the actual stories behind them. And it was years before I actually held a copy of Doom Patrol, but I certainly read the stories because they were reprinted in this particular format. So
whole series that were nothing but reprints, that Marvel collector's items become Marvel Tales, et cetera, et cetera. And so many firsts that now you take for granted. I mean, when the Vision went crazy on that scroll, and I don't know if it was Avengers 96 or something, it just was beating up. It was so shocking at the time to have something like that happen. And now it's just like, oh, chop his head off, whatever. But but yeah, but they're still there, and with so many of the publications and omnibuses and etc., you can still go back and see the foundation of what you enjoy now.
Yeah.
Well, we live in the age of Wikipedia now, so when you see those, and I still am a huge fan of the editor's notes, where in mainstream comics where they leave you a little note, say go check out this and blah blah blah. We have the benefit of having the internet in our pockets now, where we can go find that, or we can find where to find that, which is
right. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and another community that Caleb and I are a part of. You can drop omnibuses and you can use omniboo. It's okay.
Okay.
When
Okay.
referring to it in plural.
Okay. Okay. Very cool.
Okay, good. All right, over to COVID Caleb. So, what do you have there? That won't
Uh,
stick, I know.
a new moniker, apparently.
Yeah.
No, so I read a book. As you might imagine, I'm a little bit behind on my reading with studying and bar
Hmm.
prep and whatnot, getting ready to go into that. But read a book that came out, I think, about 2 weeks ago. Finally got to it on my little stack. It's called Sins of the Black Flamingo. Number one. It's published by Image Comics. This is written by Andrew Wheeler, art by the great Travis Moore. Tamara Bonvillain did the colors on it, with letters by Aditya Bidikar. The long and short of it, this is a crime book slash spy book slash really flamboyant, awesome queer fest. I'd like that. I don't know how else to filter it as far as labels go. The Black Flamingo is he's a thief, right? But he's kind of like a half Robin Hood kind of thief. And where I say he's a half Robin Hood, like he steals from the rich, but it's not necessarily to give to the poor, just because the poor doesn't have anything to steal. And he really doesn't do it for the money as much as he does it just to like thumb screw the system, so to speak. So like when a young couple come to him and they say, hey, we're Jewish, we're descendants of people who were in the Holocaust and were taken to the camps in World War II. These people who took our predecessors, our ancestors, took something from us, something tangible, and we have found out that it's been sold and it's been passed down through black markets, through people who collect such things. And this was an artifact created by our great grandfather, and it really has no value except to us. But we would like it back, and it's being kept in Florida of all places. That Florida being the home of the Florida man. So it's being kept there, and it's actually in just a little. It's in a museum of American history down in the basement. And like a lot of people, the Black Flamingo not a big fan of Nazis. So he's like, yeah, no, like let's get your property back. It belongs to you. Let's go do it. So he jumps in and he puts on his little subterfuge hat and he sneaks in and he infiltrates this place to get it back. And he's going to see what he can get. Like he's going to and the man has an ego. Like his ego is out of this world, but it's a little bit deserved. Like he's good at what he does and he knows it. So he gets down there and he finds it. And it's this little clay tablet. It almost looks like a wafer. And it's got it's got Hebrew writing on it, and he gets it out of the box and he leaves a little plastic black flamingo because he's going to leave a calling card, and he also wants to, in case he accidentally gets caught, be able to play it off like, oh no, I meant to. You hunted down the clues. You got me. Good job. But he takes it, and before he leaves, before he gets out of this sub basement, which by the way is filled with Third Reich ephemera, is filled with American Confederate, all of these elements of white supremacy in American history that are kept in this basement of the museum for reasons that we will find out later. It's not all just from a very historical collector standpoint. He takes it, but as he's leaving, he sees this piece of paper, and it's got these drawings of a collar. And he looks at it and he's like, that's odd. And he starts to reading it and figuring out what it does. And it's this occult arcane artifact. And he's like, oh, this thing says it allows people to like trap demons or to take control of demons. I don't want anybody who believes like this to have control of that. I'm going to take this with me. He goes about his business. He gets out, does what he does, takes the little trinket, the wafer, if you will, back to the couple. And the history behind this, if you're familiar with Hebrew lore, then you're familiar with the concept of the golem. And if you're familiar with comic books, you should be familiar with the concept of the golem. It is the thing from which comics stems, be it Superman, but what have you. There's a reason why all the people, the forefathers and foremothers of this medium, were Jewish individuals, and it's why we have the visuals that we have today. They have with them a clay golem that was made by their great-great-grandfather, who was not only a Jewish man, obviously, but who was also a queer activist, arcane mystic. And although he was married to a woman and had his family, he was in love with another man, and he was afraid because of what was happening that this man would be taken. And so he put his soul into this golem, and this wafer brings him back. So in this moment, the book erupts into this actual arcane mysticism. Like, this is not just lore, this is real, which kind of expands the Black Flamingo's mind and lets him know where he needs to put his focus at. This is not the end of this, right? Like, there are other people who traffic in these kind of arcane black markets, and he gets his way in there to figure out what he needs to do. But this is also not the first time that he's dealt with this kind of thing. And the Black Flamingo is in possession of something called the Devil's Tooth, which is apparently real sought after, and he's not going to get rid of it. But when he goes into the McMansion of one of these black market white collar bigwigs to find out what he can find, he discovers something or someone that he was not expecting to find. And that's where the first issue closes. This was fantastic. I really did not know what to expect from this book. As a person who's a fan of crime comics, a fan of spy comics, I didn't know. And so many of these books that we get are whiffs, right? Like, you just read them and you want to support it, but it's just not what you want. This was excellent. This was incredibly good. And it not only was it good in plot and in form, it also has the aspect of being queer related. And it's not just like, it doesn't use those queer elements or queer, codified languages to just put it in there and say, so we see it. It uses it in an actual way. Like, it matters. It has meaning. And he's sassy as hell. So it's really fun. He wears this mask, and it's got all of this sequence around, because he's a flashy dude. Like, for somebody who's a spy or who shouldn't want to be seen, he loves getting attention. But the sequence on it blinds any cameras. So it's just really well thought out and really well done. So go check out Sins of the Black Flamingo #1 and bring it home with you.
Okay, very nice. So Steve, you talked about a #1. Caleb, you talked about a #1. I'm going to talk about the end of a miniseries. I'm going to talk about issues 5 and 6 of something. Like Caleb, because of the job and not because of studying, I really have not had a lot of downtime. It's been very busy, very, very, very busy. But I got a couple of comics in, and one series that I read, that I completed, was the Earth Prime miniseries. So these are the last 2 issues. This is out of DC. This is Earth Prime, the Flash, and then the denouement, the wrap up here, of Heroes Twilight, with the questionable spelling, but it's not going to bother me too much. Earth Prime is the surviving Earth in the Arrowverse after their Crisis on Infinite Earths, and it links in stories, involving the characters from the various Arrowverse shows. Unfortunately, some of those left us. So you had an issue that was dedicated to Legends of Tomorrow. You had an issue that was dedicated to Batwoman, to Superman and Lois. You'll see here the Flash. There was an issue dedicated to Stargirl, even though she's not part of that universe. It's adjacent. And they actually do like a very good explanation in that comic. So I was happy to see that. And then we have the wrap up with who actually turned out to be the main villain, which was their universe's version of Magog. So, one thing that this series did was it spotlighted some of the supporting characters. For the Legends of Tomorrow, they actually had a team of the former members, which was really great to see. There also is a lot of alignment with the actual production teams on the series. A lot of the writers for these particular issues were people who were on the writing staffs of those shows. James Robinson actually wrote the Stargirl story, which was wonderful, and again, in keeping with that tone of spotlighting some of the supporting characters, that was mostly focused on Pat Dugan and one of Pat Dugan's past enemies. And it was nice to see, it wasn't a Star Spangled Kid and Stripesy enemy, it was a Stripesy enemy, which was interesting to experience. Issue 6 spotlighted XS and Kid Flash. I'm sorry, Excess and Impulse, though Kid Flash is in the mix. And, for people who've been reading comics for a while, it was so nice to see that Matt Waringo style on a speedster again. I think this was the artist is David LaFuente, and this was a very deliberate choice. I really felt it, not just in even the structure. I mean, these are almost like Waringo panels, as you can see here, from his classic Flash run, and also moving into the creation of Impulse there. Just a nice side story. Again, since these characters of the Flash are in the future, about a telepath and him causing havoc on the central city of the future. Some really nice character beats in that. Um, and they also sprinkle in other elements from the series. Argus is in there, and the various other Legends of Tomorrow concepts are in there. In the wrap up, which is Heroes Twilight, the various characters come together again, and they also make some deliberate choices. Since Supergirl does not have an outlet, Supergirl has a main spot in this. It was just a really well balanced series, and it ends with two surprises. One is a return of a character to the Arrowverse, and again, you do get the absolute feel that this is canon for that universe, not just because of the people participating in it, but just the a lot of the references and the tones. And then there is another backup series in here involving Cisco Ramon and Tina Wazo. Those characters have not met in on the TV series yet, but they've met in here, and it leads directly into Flash season 9, which is a nice little device. So if you're a big fan of those series, I can't imagine not picking this up. But it was one of those series that was better than it needed to be, you know, in a sense, because hey, TV tie-in, sometimes those are devices to let's basically keep certain service marks going in a medium, and you know, and also in this case, spotlighted a lot of artists, and in terms of the writing staff, the people that have written these characters but have not written comics. And there's some, very new artist names in here. So it was a really well balanced, well constructed series. I imagine it's going to be collected very soon in a trade. So that was Earth Prime issues 5 and 6, and the other four were pretty good too, especially the Stargirl issue. Definitely seek that out, especially if you're a fan of James Robinson, because there's nothing that makes me happier than a times past story, and it half of it plays like that, which is really nice to say. But um,
that's good. I actually do have all of these
mhm.
somewhere in
Yeah.
that pile, ready to read.
Tell the cat to
Ready
get
to
him.
read anytime.
Yeah, tell the cat to get
Yeah, the
him.
cat will find them before I will. That's true.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to start wrapping this episode up. And when we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears podcast up, we do so with a segment we call the Woofs of the Week. In the bear community, if you find a fella attractive, you woof at him. And we do something similar. We woof at something that may be a comic book, but it may also be a film or a TV program or a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener or viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start with our guest, Rich. If you have a woof of the week, please offer it.
Gosh, I too much input here. Should have got me first. I need more time, but I
It
don't
can be
know.
a Kickstarter that you heard about.
Well, no, I have to say this might be a controversial wolf of the week, but I think that the boys have really managed to keep me interested. I think they may have gone past, uh, in many ways, the comic book itself and their presentation and their choices of their focus. And even though I am sometimes uncomfortable in a gritty, almost nobody is super likable universe, um, I can take it here, and just that constant feeling that at any time, I mean, any scene with Homelander, any and all of you might die. He is a ticking time bomb. He is unsettled. And now that he's gotten some, spoiler alert, I won't go into detail, but now that he has more support for some of his darker actions, I can't even imagine what the next series will contain.
Yeah. Wholeheartedly agree.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I do have to ask, as somebody who is so far behind on it, though yet owns every single issue of The Boys in the ancillary series, have they deviated from the comic like significantly?
Oh, a lot.
Okay.
They do have elements, though. They have a lot of the elements from the comics, and usually presented slightly differently.
Okay, because I've only seen the first season, and this will be one of my summer binges. Yeah.
They're a lot different.
Their Stormfront choice was very smart and changed the dynamic a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
Plus, I love that actor. I love that actress. She's great.
The overall theme is kind of tracking with the comic. They've changed the tone and then the way that certain elements are introduced.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
But yeah, I enjoy it way more than the comic, way more, and that is rare for me to say.
Okay. Cool. All right, let's go to Steve. Steve, what is your Woof of the Week?
Well, I kind of mentioned a little bit of this Woof, but I do have another one, and I had talked very, very briefly. We had mentioned it, I think, 2 weeks ago, because I surprised Bill by not having it as my Woof of the Week. But now that we are halfway through the season, I am going to mention Dark Side of the 90s, which is available on Vice. And on demand as well. Usually it comes to Discovery Plus or Hulu after it's finished airing the season. But if you have a chance to watch it, definitely do so. It is the second season of Dark Side of the 90s, and I think the subjects this year have been great. They did an entire episode on cops and the history of the show, where it came from, the contributors, some great interviews with people that if you ever watched Cops in the early 90s, you might recognize some of the sheriffs and some of the producers and people from the show, as well as what happened to it, and the fact that it still exists today in a form and has been brought back is kind of shocking to me. I didn't realize that it was still around and that there was still something there. But also they did a great two-parter on the history of the UFC, which had a very different life in the early 90s and a very different, I'd say, position in American culture that now, looking back, you can't imagine that it was as controversial as it was, but it certainly almost met its end pretty early on in its life. And then, of course, this week, I believe, was all tabloid TV. Amy Fisher, the Long Island Lolita, and that kind of, hard-hitting tabloid-style news show, A Current Affair, and Inside Edition, that kind of stuff. Which that gives me a moment to mention the Maureen O'Boyle story. When the first week when we moved into Charlotte, we were at a little sandwich shop that was right next to our apartment, and there's Maureen O'Boyle, who, after she was on A Current Affair, ended up going to local news in Charlotte, North Carolina. So she does not age.
I hope there's no tape of existing, but I did play Joey Buttafuoco in a student film, and it was brief, but the one sequence was Joey Buttafuoco and Grace Jones starring in Howard's End. That it's like Mary, I shan't give you Howard's End, and then Grace Jones would come in, but she should forgive you just as I forgave you for Mrs. Bast. I just remember the lines, like, because we had to do them, like the director was like inept, and we must have had like 70 takes.
Wow, and YouTube has everything. Oh no,
they don't have that, but yeah, so
not yet anyway.
Yeah. If anyone has footage of that, I need you to contact me.
And I had like practically like a Jufro on my head, because of Joey's hair, and so it was something. So tangent. The one episode I haven't watched yet, apart from the most recent one, I haven't watched the Real World episode, and I've heard that's very good. I've heard that's very good.
It was good.
Yeah. Okay.
Especially in the light of the fact that Paramount Plus has had several seasons or several series already of the Real World Reunion, where they've gone back by season and reunited as much of the cast that they could find or that is still alive, and it's really interesting to see that and then hear behind the scenes of what it was like for something that was so unique at the time and now is just garbage TV that you see so much of.
Bless you.
But yeah, it's very, very shocking, very interesting.
Okay, cool.
Dark Side of the 90s.
And at some point I will that. And again, Steve, we were also talking about how excited we are about the dark side of comedy that's coming up.
Next month.
Perfect device for that kind of format. All right, over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your woof of the week?
Well, my woof of the week does not go out to COVID at all. No, so I'm actually going to go to a comic for this one. I'm trying to, like I said, reading a lot of good stuff. And look, if we're going to have the co-publisher of a publishing company on here, I might as well talk about one of the books he publishes. So I had an opportunity to read Triskele #1 this past week, and actually I think #2 either just hit shelves yesterday or is coming out next week. I'm not sure which one. But this is a fantastic book. I absolutely adored it. Just the elevator pitch of it. If you are into pre-Roman Celtic or Welsh mythology or paganism or just life in general, you want to check out this book. It's written by Felipe Pon with art by Monarmus, who I'm not familiar with, but I love the art in this book. It follows a young boy who, he's been raised by his grandmother, and all of a sudden things go awry, and he ends up it's kind of like an early Arthurian story, or it could be at least if it goes in that direction. But he ends up being the person who's going to be the sword bearer for his people. Against all kinds of supernatural nasties, is what it looks like. So I'm fascinated by paganism. I'm fascinated by this pre-Roman European world, and this took me. I picked it up kind of sight unseen off the cover alone, which is rare for us anymore. Normally, I don't like cover art. Does not make me grab anything. But I saw this and was like, yeah, I'm going to read that. And within like an hour after I read it, called up the shops and put it on my pull list. Like, I need this book. Give me all the issues. From Scout Comics, go check. And I think I'm pronouncing that right. So please correct me if I'm wrong. But Triskele?
I've heard it about 3 ways, even within the office. So
okay.
I've heard Triskele a lot, but I don't know. I'll get with the creator sometime, and they can tell us exactly, and I'll come back one day and let you know. I will say, along with things like that, we've got West Moon Chronicles coming out, which will deal with Korean mythology. So we've got a lot of really, a lot of interesting takes and perhaps mythologies and things which you don't see quite as often,
right,
coming out soon as well.
I can't wait. I'm giddy.
Okay, cool. All right, my woof of the week goes out to a documentary series that is airing or streaming on HBO Max, and that is Menudo Forever Young. I can't believe I started watching this, but as soon as I put it on, I was fascinated. Again, Menudo was a boy band, and we really were like the first boy band that had a formula to it, in that members were retired after they hit around age 15, and newer members were brought in, and it covers the band's entire history. I didn't know a thing. I knew Ricky Martin used to be a member. That's and they sang in Cannonball Run too. It's about as far as I went. And of course, growing up in the New York area, there was some TV coverage, but that was about all that I knew. And it really is a fascinating story. The group was basically pulled apart in the end due to sexual harassment from the team's management, and the interview subjects, who are all former members of the band, uh, and there are some other journalists and some other people interviewed, but for the most part, the lion's share of the interviews are with the former members. Just some really fascinating, charming guys, and just it's just an epic story of this band that had a very unique foothold in particular areas, as a Latino boy band, and ventured into markets that no other band like them had success with before, and just there's a lot of gay. So for this would have been ideal for Problem. There's a whole lot of gay going on in there. And so there's a 4-episode series which is on HBO Max, and that's Menudo Forever Young. That's my wolf.
There was a shocking story on that one that I didn't really think of it, but because they kind of got their start in the 70s and early 80s,
yeah,
which was a pretty turbulent time for parts of Central and South America.
Oh yeah, when they were in
story about El Salvador.
Yeah.
That was just amazing that the entire country
had a ceasefire. Yeah.
They had a ceasefire in their civil war. They had a ceasefire because Menudo was there and Menudo was going to be playing.
And then also that remarkably touching story about the bodyguards that were assigned to them.
The young guys who were just a few years older than them.
They were just a few years older than them, and they were kidding around. They were, playing in the hotel rooms with the guns, and then at the end of it, there was this sober realization that these guys were headed back to the front as soon as these concerts were over. It was there's some really riveting moments in it, and it's an epic story. It really is. So I think people don't worry, because believe me, it hasn't changed my opinion of the music one bit. But in terms of a character analysis and of the people that actually do get caught up in this world, it was just fascinating. So really loved it.
And the way my comic book mind works, it spun me off into members leaving and things. So series I haven't thought about for a long time, I might have to go back and try to dig up again. Strike Force Morituri.
Yeah. The Strike
Menudo
Force
is the Strike Force Morituri of Latin American boy bands.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. That can be like a pitch there. Strike Force Menudo. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That'd be ideal.
Get it from me, Stan. I don't care what you have to do. I want it. Wrap it up. Okay, go ahead.
Well, Rich, thank you so much for joining us. Hope to see you. Apart from San Diego, do you have other cons that you're going to be at?
Yes. Well, the closest one to San Diego, I believe, and if I'm getting this wrong, forgive me, other conventions, but Geek Con, which is Shreveport, Louisiana, just barely not in Texas, so they draw from a lot of places, and just as luck would have it, just from the people that suddenly the guests they were gathering and everything, it's kind of almost, it is comic book, it absolutely is, but it's almost going to be like on the horror side of comic books.
Nice.
So Scout's going to have a big presence there, and we'll also see if you're a fan of the battered VHS in the afterward sale comic book covers. It's going to be the first Stabbity Bunny VHS cover. Will be a convention variant there.
Nice.
And then I'll be at New York with Scout. Scout's got a nice presence in New York, trying to maintain that. And there's always, like with San Diego and New York, there's going to be lots of announcements. I mean, if you watch our press releases, every few weeks there's some sort of announcement about something being fairly well along in various aspects of multimedia. So, going to be at Daytona, cool. A lot of the Florida ones, and then, but New York and San Diego are the main, and Geek are the main ones outside of Florida.
Nice. Well, again, thank you for joining us. Awesome. Thank you for joining us for this time. Best of luck with however the Kickstarter ends, whether it's 14,000 funded. 14,000%.
Yes.
Is what I meant to say.
Yes.
What I
That's
wanted
even
to say.
better. That's even
Let's get
better.
it there. And I'm sure we'll see you soon. So,
Absolutely.
some point in person. Yeah. All right. Again, you have been watching the live stream of the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. If you want to listen to us, you can do that through Apple Podcast, through Stitcher Radio, and many of the other podcasting platforms. And until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
If you're listening to the audio version, you're going to hear a woof and an explosion. We'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.
Go buy Scout Comics.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey.
Bye. Thanks again, Rich.
All right. You guys take